In today's video, we'll take a look at retrieving groups inside of the CometChat JavaScript SDK. This will include identifying exactly what groups a certain user is in, pulling out specific groups for details, or even identifying exactly how many online users are available inside of a group. Let's begin right now. We'll start on the CometChat website, where we'll head to the top menu to Developers and then over to Documentation. On this page, we're going to select the SDK option here at the top, and then we're going to head over to the JavaScript for the Web SDK. On the left-hand menu, we're going to head over to the groups and expand out this section. Previously, we covered how to create a group. This time, we'll be having a look at how to retrieve groups in a better fashion. Retrieving groups basically allows you to get a list of all the groups that you've joined or are a part of. Part of this is using the groups request class with the groups request builder. This is very similar to the message builder, where the builder basically creates a new class for the group request. Here we've got an example where we've limited it to 30 items, and then we generate this group request. And if we scroll down a little bit further, we can do a couple of other things such as search for keywords, but the end result here will be to do a fetch, where we use the group request as part of a .fetchNext and then execute that to get the list for the group. There are other types of queries we can run. We don't actually always have to search for many groups, but we can even search for a specific group with things like a get group by ID. This is useful if you just want to get the information for a specific group based on that group ID. Of course, we can also get the number of online users for a group at any point in time. So for a real-time application, this can be very useful to show exactly where a thread or group might be active. We'll take a look at this shortly, but let's jump into VS Code to begin utilizing some of these commands. Here in our last video, we created a group. It was called the Adrian group, or the Hello group Adrian. We're going to use some of this syntax later on, and if you want to check out the previous video, you'll be able to find that. But to begin, we just want to do a simple lookup for all the groups that I'm currently in or joined as part of my login request. I'm already logged in, so I'm going to do a simple command here. We're going to limit it to just 30 groups because you can have quite a few groups that you're in, and normally you could scroll through these. The next thing we need to do here is create the groups request. This is done by creating a new class. This class is called by running new space CometChat.groups request builder. This request builder lets us define a number of things, but we'll begin it with a simple set limit with the limit of 30 that we had earlier, and then we're going to build it. With this groups request being now defined, we can execute it. And we're going to do this by calling groups request.fetchNext. Then we're going to get a response back from the server. This response will be the group list that we've basically are asking for. We can console log this out for the time being and have a look at it, but if you were doing this inside of your own application, you could update the state of your UI for it. As always, it's good to have some error handling here, so let me just quickly tab out a check to see if there is an error. We can console log out what that error is. With this defined, we've got our group list here, and we can open up an instance of Chrome with a debugger, and here we can see that our group list array is available. We can expand this out and see all the groups that I'm currently a part of, which includes the supergroup, global group, even the public friends Adrian group that I created in the last video. We can expand these out for additional details in case we want to populate that UI. This is the quickest and fastest way to retrieve groups in terms of CometChat, but there are other ways too, which we'll have a look at now. If, for example, you wanted to retrieve just a single group to be able to identify what it is or whether it even exists, you can do this by defining it early on. You'll need to know what the group ID is here. So in this case, I know that I have a group called group_ID_Adrian, and this is the one that I'm looking for, whether it still exists and whether I can pull in additional information about it. In order to do that, we'll need to run the following method, which is CometChat.getGroup. Nice and simple and easy to remember. Here we'll pass in the group ID and then perform the request. The request should give us just a single response, which will be the group itself, and we can console log that out or update the state of our UI depending on what we're after. Here I'm just going to console log it out that it actually exists, and I'm going to showcase what it is, and then I'll do some quick error handling in case it doesn't exist, so that maybe we can perform a different action. Now, in the last video, we created a group called the Adrian group. But if, for example, that group didn't yet exist, this is a way to look up whether a group with a particular group ID exists or not. And if it doesn't, we can create it properly. Otherwise, if you saw in our previous video, we kept getting errors that the group already existed, and this is a better way to handle that kind of a scenario. Here, we'll check whether the group ID exists, and if not, we will create it. And we can test this out in the console, basically showcasing that the group already does exist, and here it is. Therefore, it's not replicated in terms of its creation. We can jump into the CometChat dashboard to have a look at what it would look like if we didn't have that group. So what I'm going to do is actually go to the Adrian Hello group. I'm going to manually delete it so that it doesn't exist anymore. And with that deleted, what I'm thinking is that we'll jump back into the code that we currently have here and test out whether this scenario works better by refreshing it and seeing that the group is actually now created. So it does pop up here that the group no longer exists as part of this structure, and therefore it has been created successfully. So this whole process seems to be a much better way to handle these kinds of scenarios. And if, for example, we were to refresh this page once more, we would see the inverse of that, where the group now no longer gets recreated because it already exists and therefore its lookup has performed successfully. Great. Let's move on to have a look at some of the other things we can do when retrieving groups. Now, we previously had a look at searching for all groups as well as one specific group, but another thing we can do is perform a general search with a keyword. Now, let's define a keyword value here by defining the attribute search keyword, and we're just going to put in Adrian because I know that I have at least one or two groups named Adrian. We'll do a .search keyword here as part of our group request builder, and we'll pass in that search keyword term. With that done, we should be able to simply run the same command as previously, but this time we'll only be limited to those groups that have that keyword. And here we can see that was successful. We've got our two groups here, both of them which have the name Adrian in there, and we can expand those out to see exactly what they are. This is the benefit of searching if you're looking for specific keywords, and it's a common practice that you would expect in a real-time chat application. We can be more specific about the keyword, such as adding in uppercase and lowercase syntax, but as you can see, both Adrians will search because it's case insensitive. The next thing we can do is add other keywords, such as the word hello. We can see now a single item has popped up rather than the two, because this one both has the name Adrian as well as the word hello. Let's actually have a look at what other searching we can perform here. We can try and add another word here called friend, and we can see that we've now come up with nothing. This is because there is no word friend in any part of the searches, and therefore it'll always show up as empty. But another thing we can do here is add the word group, and if we have a look at that, we immediately have a search result. We can type in group in a number of different ways, and we can see that it is successfully showcasing the hello group Adrian, and this is great. We can also even have a look at the group ID and use that as part of the search keyword request. If we do that and perform a search, we can see that we're still getting one item here for the list, which is that same group, the hello group Adrian, which is the one that we're looking for, which is great. This way, the searching can be useful in a number of fashions depending on what you're trying to find. Finally, if I remove the search keyword, this will perform a regular search like normal, showcasing all the groups that we have. Let's move on to have a look at the other things we can do as part of the group request builder. If, for example, you wanted to have a look at only groups that you've joined, there is syntax called joined only. This will only show the groups that you've actually joined actively and are a part of, rather than just all of them. There's only 4 in this case, and if we were to set this value to false, we would actually have 5 of them. I can't remember exactly when I left one of my groups, but this is just an example of what that might look like. Another thing that we can do is search for set tags. We would need to define those tags if we want, and often the tags that we use here as an example are just tag 1 or maybe even tag 2 or even both. But right now I don't believe I have any specific examples where I've attached tags to groups, so this will likely show up as empty, which it has. There is one other useful command here we can add in, which is with tags is true, and all this will do will ensure that we'll actually get a list of the tags along with the request when we make it. Now, in terms of all of these commands, these are the majority of the ones you'll be making with the group request builder. There is one more function we should look at as part of building a real-time application, which is to see how many online users there are. I can start doing this by defining my group IDs. This will actually be an array, and the array can have one or many groups. We'll start off with one group to show you exactly how it works. This is one of the easier methods to run because we only need the one item here as part of the syntax. And now we can run CometChat.get online group member count, and we pass in those group IDs. This performs the request, which gives us the totals that we're looking for. I'm going to label these group member counts, and then we're going to just console log them out. But inside your own application, you could have a little number there showcasing exactly how many users are online for a specific or multiple groups. I'll finish this up by defining an error handler, and let's actually test this out inside of the Google Chrome browser to see how it performs. And here it is. We are currently on 0 because I'm not technically online. Be aware this is online members only, especially useful for a real-time application, but not a list of all the members. We can have a look at multiple groups though. So for example, let's copy out supergroup 1, or I think it's just called supergroup, and let's perform this same request and see what we come back with. Here we can see that now we have two groups coming back, and both of them have a grand total of 0 online users because they're still in testing/dev. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. In the next one, we'll continue to explore groups, as well as how we can modify them or even delete them. If you're looking for that video, you should be able to find it just up here. Awesome.